We have all heard the old rule, you must rotate your crops. Gardeners are told it is one of the golden rules for success. The advice is clear. Do not plant the same vegetable in the same spot year after year. For example, you grow potatoes in one bed this year. Next year you must move them somewhere else. Then you might plant beans where the potatoes were. The idea sounds sensible. It comes from large-scale farming, where it has been used for centuries. The main reasons given are to prevent the buildup of pests and diseases in the soil, and to manage soil nutrients. It is a system that seems to promise a healthy, balanced garden for everyone. The logic behind this traditional advice is quite straightforward. Different plant families are said to have specific pests and diseases that can live in the soil. If you grow cabbages in the same bed every year, clubroot disease might become a big problem. By moving the cabbage family to a new bed, you supposedly break the life cycle of the disease. Similarly, different plants take different nutrients from the soil. Leafy greens like lettuce need a lot of nitrogen. Root vegetables like carrots need more potassium. Rotation is meant to stop one part of your garden from running out of a particular nutrient, giving the soil a chance to recover. So, we create complicated charts and plans. We divide our gardens into 3 or 4 sections. We carefully track which plant family goes where each season. It can feel like a game of chess against nature. Brassicas follow legumes, which follow roots, which follow fruiting plants. The plans can become quite a headache, especially for new gardeners who are just trying to grow a few tomatoes and some lettuce for their dinner. The stress of getting the rotation right can take the joy out of gardening. We are so busy following the rules that we forget to simply enjoy watching our plants grow. This system is taught in gardening books and courses as an essential practice. It is presented as the only way to avoid disaster. Failure to rotate, we are warned, will lead to sick plants and poor harvests. I followed this advice myself for many years. I dutifully moved my crops around my plot, believing it was the best thing to do. It felt like the responsible, professional way to manage my market garden. But over time, I started to question if this complicated dance was truly necessary, especially in a small, well-tended garden. I noticed that the promised benefits were not always appearing in the way the books described. On a large farm with huge fields, crop rotation makes a lot of sense. Imagine a 10-acre field of nothing but potatoes. That is a massive feast for potato pests like the Colorado beetle. The pests can build up to huge numbers. By moving the potatoes to a different field miles away next year, the farmer can leave the pests behind. But a small garden is completely different. Your garden might only be a few square meters. Moving your potatoes from one bed to another is like moving them from the living room to the kitchen. For a tiny pest, the journey is no trouble at all. It is a very short hop. Pests and diseases do not respect the imaginary lines we draw around our garden beds. Slugs will happily travel from your bean bed to your cabbage bed in a single night. Fungal spores, like those that cause blight on tomatoes, can be carried for miles on the wind. They do not care if you moved your tomatoes to the other side of the patio this year. In a small enclosed space, pests and diseases can easily find their targets no matter where you plant them. The small scale of a home garden makes the pest prevention argument for rotation much weaker. It creates a lot of work for the gardener, for very little reward. Furthermore, strict rotation can actually cause nutrient problems in a small garden. The theory says you should follow heavy-feeding cabbages with light-feeding carrots. But what if you love cabbages and only want to grow a few carrots? Your rotation plan forces you to dedicate a large area to crops you do not want, just to follow the rules. This can lead to you adding the wrong type of compost or fertilizer to the wrong bed at the wrong time. You might end up with soil that is rich in one nutrient but poor in another, creating an imbalance that harms your plants more than it helps them. It is an unnecessary complication. I have seen many beginner gardeners become disheartened by this. They try to follow a 4-year rotation plan in a garden with only 3 small raised beds. It becomes an impossible puzzle. They worry they have ruined their soil forever because they planted tomatoes in the same spot for 2 years in a row. This fear is not helpful. It stops people from growing what they love to eat. The truth is, in a small garden, the benefits of rotation are tiny compared to the benefits of another, much simpler approach. It is time we stopped trying to manage our gardens like massive farms and started focusing on what really matters. When I first started my market garden, I was a firm believer in crop rotation. I read all the books and followed the advice of the experts. I had a detailed 4-year rotation plan for my entire growing area. I spent hours each winter drawing up charts, making sure my brassicas never followed my brassicas. It felt like the proper scientific way to garden. For the first few years, everything seemed to go well. But as time went on, I started to notice things that made me question this old wisdom. My soil did not seem to be getting healthier. In fact, some beds seemed tired. The turning point for me was my potato patch. Potatoes are known to be prone to disease, so I was especially careful to rotate them. One year after a harvest, I found a few small potatoes had been left behind in the soil. These are called volunteers. The next spring, they sprouted in the same bed where I was now growing leeks, breaking my perfect rotation plan. I expected them to be weak and diseased. To my surprise, these volunteer potatoes grew strong and healthy. They produced a wonderful crop, right there amongst the leeks, with no sign of the blight I feared. This happened more than once. This experience was a real eye-opener. It made me think, if these potatoes can grow so well without rotation, what am I really achieving with all this complicated planning? I started to experiment. I decided to stop rotating in one section of my garden. Instead of moving the crops, I focused all my energy on feeding the soil. After every harvest, I would simply clear the old plants and spread a thick layer of compost on the surface of the bed. I did not dig it in. I just left it on top as a mulch. I planted the next crop, sometimes from the very same plant family, directly into the compost. The results were remarkable. The plants in my no-rotation beds were just as healthy, if not healthier, than the plants in my rotated beds. The soil structure improved dramatically. It was full of life, worms, beneficial fungi, and microbes. I realized that the health of my garden did not depend on where I put my plants. It depended entirely on the health of the soil they were growing in. A living, well-fed soil is strong enough to support healthy plants and suppress diseases on its own. It was a simpler, more effective, and much more joyful way to garden. I abandoned my rotation charts for good. Alright, let's dive into section 4. The real secret. Feeding your soil, not shuffling plants. You see, the real secret to a healthy garden isn't some complicated map of where to plant your vegetables. Nope, it's much simpler than that. Feed your soil. Think of your garden soil not as dirt, but as a living community. It's a bustling ecosystem filled with billions of microscopic organisms, bacteria, fungi, worms, and countless other tiny creatures. These organisms are your garden's best friends. They break down organic matter, release nutrients for your plants, improve soil structure, and even help fight off diseases. When you focus on feeding this underground community, they do most of the hard work for you. This is the heart of the no-dig philosophy. It creates what I like to call the living soil loop. It's a continuous cycle of giving back to the soil. Every time you harvest a crop, you're taking nutrients out of the ground. The simple solution is to put them back. After you pull up your lettuces or finish harvesting your beans, you add a new layer of organic matter to the surface of the bed. This could be your own homemade compost, well-rotted manure, or any other decomposed organic material. You don't need to dig it in. Just lay it on top, about 2 to 5 centimeters thick. The worms and microbes will do the work of pulling it down into the soil. This layer of compost acts as a mulch. It protects the soil from heavy rain and hot sun, suppresses weeds, and holds moisture. More importantly, it's food for the soil life. As the microbes break down the compost, they release a steady supply of nutrients in a form that plants can easily absorb. This is much better than a sudden blast from a chemical fertilizer. A soil that's rich in organic matter and teeming with microbial life is better able to defend itself. Healthy soil grows healthy plants, and healthy plants are naturally more resistant to pests and diseases. They have their own strong immune systems. You can supercharge this process with other additions. Worm castings, for example, are a fantastic soil conditioner, full of beneficial microbes. You can also use leaf mold or wood chip mulch on paths to encourage fungal networks that benefit the entire garden. The key is to keep the soil covered and fed at all times. By constantly adding organic matter, you're not just replacing nutrients. You're building a resilient, self-sustaining ecosystem. This living soil is the true foundation of a productive garden, making the old rules of crop rotation completely unnecessary. You're working with nature, not against it. Moving on to Section 5. Simple steps to revive your garden and forget rotation. If your garden feels tired and your plants are struggling, don't despair. It's easy to get started with this soil-first approach. Instead of a rotation plan, let's use two powerful tools: cover crops and companion planting. Cover crops, or green manures, are plants you grow to improve the soil. In autumn, after your main harvest, sow a hardy cover crop like Phacelia or winter tares. They grow through the winter, protecting the soil from erosion. Their roots create channels in the soil, improving its structure. In spring, you simply cut them down and cover them with compost, creating a perfect bed for planting. Companion planting is another brilliant way to build a healthy garden ecosystem without rotation. This is the art of placing plants together for their mutual benefit. For example, planting marigolds around your tomatoes can help deter pests like whitefly. Growing onions and carrots together can help to confuse the carrot root fly and the onion fly. Planting strong-smelling herbs like rosemary or basil among your cabbages can help mask their scent from cabbage white butterflies. This creates a diverse, resilient garden where plants help to protect each other, reducing the buildup of any single pest. If you have a bed that has been over-rotated and feels depleted, here's a simple recipe to bring it back to life. First, clear any weeds from the surface without digging. If the soil is very compacted, you can gently push a garden fork in and wiggle it to create air channels, but don't turn the soil over. Next, spread a 2-centimeter layer of any old, rotted manure or homemade compost. On top of that, add a 5-centimeter layer of good quality compost. You can plant directly into this top layer straight away. Finish by watering it well. This simple act feeds the soil life and provides instant nutrients. The message is simple. Focus on feeding your soil, not on moving your plants. Stop worrying about complicated charts and schedules. Instead, make it your mission to add organic matter to your beds whenever you can. After each harvest, give something back. A layer of compost is a gift to the billions of organisms that are working to make your garden thrive. By building a deep, rich, living soil, you create a foundation for healthy plants year after year, in the very same spot if you wish. This is a simpler, more joyful, and far more effective way to garden.